Thank you so much, Isabel, for being here today. My name is Michelle Llanes Olivares. We're here to talk about Down Syndrome New South Wales, which you happen to be a board member of, to really talk about your experience as a parent. So you've migrated from Colombia with your husband to Australia, and then you have a beautiful boy called Daniel who has Down syndrome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I guess just to start this off, and I also do want to give a thank you to Ruth, who's a peer support coordinator at Down Syndrome New South Wales, for bringing this event to life, this conversation to life, and putting together this, because we do know that there's people out there in the Latin and Hispanic community who may not be aware that this support exists. My first question would be talking a little bit about who you are, Isabel, your background, and the early stages of your story.
Thank you for this space and for working with Down Syndrome New South Wales to help us connect with the South American Latin community here in Sydney or in Australia. It's very important for us to do this sort of reach out. And about myself, I'm from Colombia, as you mentioned before. My husband is also from Colombia. I'm from a small town called Palmira near Cali. My husband is from Pasto. And we came to Australia almost 20 years ago. Initially we were just gonna come to study English for 6 months, a year tops, but here we are, almost 20 years later. We fell in love with this city, and we have formed our family here. So actually Daniel is the second of our two boys, and we have an older son, Benjamin. And Daniel was born almost 4 years ago. He will be 4 in January. Before the kids, we enjoy life here, started a new career in Australia. I work in IT, but just recently I began to be more involved in working as an advocate for Down syndrome. Thanks to Daniel, now I'm part of the board of directors of Down Syndrome New South Wales as a regular member, ordinary member, sorry. And I've been in this position for a year, but before that, I happened to know about that syndrome thanks to them reaching out to me when Daniel was born. So going back a little bit to the story, and I found out about Daniel having a possibility of Down syndrome back when I was pregnant after taking the NIP test. I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be familiar with that.
For those who aren't familiar, what is that test?
So
what does it entail?
When you are pregnant and you are over 35, it's highly recommended to have that test. It's a non-invasive test that will check your chromosomes for 4 of the major genetic syndromes or mutations. And so I happened to have that test the second time, Daniel was my second pregnancy. The first time around, I was so nervous about the results, and everything came positive, normal, no chances of anything. The second time I was more relaxed, and then I was hit with a surprise. And I don't see it now as anything negative. It was just the way the news were delivered by my GP, and that's pretty much what brought me to this day when I'm advocating for that sort of change.
What was it? How was the news delivered in a way that, how did that impact you, the way that it was delivered?
So my pregnancy with Daniel was during, our second wave of COVID. So we were at home, so I received a phone call from my GP of over 10 years, and the way she mentioned everything sounded so negative and hurtful. And I didn't know much by then. So, I remember the exact words. She called me and said, "Oh, hi, Isabel. I'm afraid I have bad news. I got the result from your test. I'm sorry, but there is high risk of Down syndrome in your baby. But don't worry." She didn't even stop for that. Don't worry, you can terminate the pregnancy. Obviously, I was devastated. I was sad. I didn't have much knowledge about what Down syndrome is. I've obviously seen people with Down syndrome, but that was about it. I just took it as something very negative. I started crying, and then she said, "Do you have any questions?" And my only question was "Is it a girl or a boy?" I don't know why that was important in that minute, but it was. I always wanted to have boys. So she said, "It's a boy," and I said, "Thank you." The conversation finished. I started crying. my husband came and I was like, what's happening? He was so confused, and I said, like, we just have to terminate this pregnancy. And he was confused. He was asking, like, but why? What's happening? Are you at risk? Like, is it anything like wrong with you? And I said, like, no, the baby may have Down syndrome. And like, he was like, but then why
So
do we have to terminate the pregnancy?
did the nurse not say like that was an option? She sort of led towards saying that is like
Yes, that
sort
was
of the
kind of
only
solution.
that's the
Like,
solution,
she was
right?
presenting me with the problem, and she
Right.
was giving me the solution
Okay.
straight away.
Yeah.
And for that, like for a couple of days, I honestly thought that that's what I have to do. Like, it was put in my mind, like, I guess the way it was framed, like, started with bad news, risk, terminate the pregnancy. So it's kind of like no-brainer for me. Like, they're like, yes, I have another son. Like, I just need to think about him, like how a child with Down syndrome is gonna affect my time with him, all his needs. He wasn't even 2 yet. Like, he was just 2 when I got pregnant with Daniel. So I got very worried. My husband, on the other hand, I think because he was lucky not to hear those words, he had the capacity to think more through, like, but why, like I've seen people with Down syndrome. I don't think there is a reason for termination. Like, let's just research. And it was a couple of very sad days.
Did they give you a certain amount of time to make a decision?
No specific times, but then the GP told me it's like you're gonna receive a call from a genetic counselor in case you have any questions, and like she'll explain more in details what this means, and then you need to go to the hospital to have a scan and then make your decision. Because I remember if my decision was to terminate the pregnancy, then I would need further testing. They would need to actually confirm the chances of Down syndrome before allowing the termination, which is messed up. Like, if there's Down syndrome, yes, go ahead, no questions asked, terminate your pregnancy.
It sounds like your husband was maybe from the very beginning he was open to the idea of
Yes, I think he wasn't biased. I would say, like,
Yeah.
it was that I done many talks before, and I feel that words have power, and your brain just takes the first things you hear, and then it's hard to turn your mind around something that is already placed as something negative in your mind.
Right. And so when you were going through those few days where you're looking for more information about it, where did you go to in terms of resources?
So I have to admit that for some time, I didn't have any connections like during pregnancy, but my brother-in-law, like, he lives in Colombia, he's a pediatrician, and I have a very dear friend from Colombia from childhood. We know each other our whole life, and she has a son with disability. It's not Down syndrome, it's a different disability, and she lives in Spain. She's very wise. She has an amazing account as well, because she is an advocate for disabilities in Spain. They moved from Colombia to Spain to find more opportunities for their son. And that was my first call. Like, I called her. I said, like, this is happening to me. What should I do? And she listened. Like, she guided me a little bit. Like, she's like very wise. And then my brother-in-law, we called him and we talked to him. Said, like, tell us what you know about Down syndrome and help us make this help me make this decision. I don't think Sebastian ever doubted, but he also wasn't judging me. It was just like the perfect balance. Like, and I'm glad it happened that way. But they were our first 2 sources of information what we reached out to make a decision. And then we went through the pregnancy. Like, obviously, we decided to have Daniel, and I think the moment I was convinced that Daniel was going to be born was when we went for the scan after the news. And the first thing that I saw in the monitor was Daniel's hand like that. That's what I said, like, okay, that's my son. He's saying hi. He's introducing himself. He's going to be here.
And how far along were you in the pregnancy when you saw Daniel's little hand?
I think I was 14 weeks pregnant. Okay. It was very early. In the pregnancy. Yes, like in that moment, my son how knew that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Everything was going to be good, and I was ready to fight for him.
Yeah. And at that point, did you find that any of the nurses or any of the health practitioners sort of tried to sway your mind at all?
Yes, my GP never gave up
Okay.
on trying to persuade that, and that's why she's not my GP anymore, even though, like, thanks to her, I have 2 children because I have fertility challenges. That was my motivation to become an advocate, to join Down Syndrome New South Wales as an advocate and then as a board member, is because they have this amazing initiative that is called the Congratulations Initiative. And one of the members goes to hospitals and they're trying to change that narrative.
Yeah.
We don't need to make this sound awful for families. We don't need to say it's bad news. Like, it's probably unexpected news, different news, but with a new pregnancy, with a new baby, there always should be a congratulations, no, like nothing else. And then, yes, like they are kind of obliged to talk about medical risk and all these things that we also need to know, but they're very general. They're not like repetitive in every child. They're not like the same things don't happen to every child with Down syndrome. The risk that kids with Down syndrome have of complex medical needs can happen to any typical child as well. So it's kind of that focus that needs to change, and that's what brought me to be very vocal about that and try to convince people, and also the support that I got. So Daniel was 5 days old when I received a call from a member of Down Syndrome New South Wales. They called me in hospital, and she acknowledged that it was a time where probably like my mind wasn't in the right place to have a discussion and to hear about the supports, but they did call me and they let me know that they were there for me for when I was ready. And I will never forget that, because that's where I felt like, okay, we probably don't have much family here, and none of our parents were able to work through a visa to be here with us, because that was just when they opened borders. So it was just us and my brother-in-law. Like, they just made it back from Colombia when the borders opened in December. Daniel was born in January, but that was it. Like, it was just as they were working, they were trying to support us as much as possible, but having that connection to Down syndrome, knowing that there was something out there waiting for us, was amazing. And like, I know we're focusing here in the amazing work of Down syndrome today, but there are also other organizations that will support you through the way and will connect you to people, and that's the beauty about like reaching out and do a bit of research. And now we're making it easier because we are calling you all to reach out to us, because we're here to support. It was a very sad start of the journey, but now it's amazing. Like, I've met so many people, many families. We are connected. Ruth is one of them. Like, Ruth reached out to me to invite me to Coco's birthday, her daughter, when she was turning 5. Daniel was still, I think, 9 months. And we went over and I met like 3 other families. One of them, like, we are super close now, and we like talk to each other probably every week. We are actually in the board together. We joined last year at the same time. And I have
a question about that. Sorry, just to interject. So what made you, well, your journey talks to this a lot, but what kind of gave you the extra push to join the board of directors?
I think I just needed to make sure that I could do something for Daniel's future. Like, as I said, we have amazing friends here. We have some family here. But when I look into the future and I see that Daniel will need to be connected to have sort of a normal, or not normal, like, I don't like that word anymore, but some sort of typical life. And like, make friends that not just the kids that he will meet at school and will become his friends, but also I want him to be connected to other kids and people his age growing up, like with Down syndrome, that they can support each other, that they can learn together, they can go out together. Like, and I just wanted to make sure that we have an association that will provide that for many years more than but they've been doing it. And I don't want to go into details that maybe are not for sharing right now, but I felt that I couldn't just try to point at things that weren't working for me, but instead I just need to go and try to help
Be the change maker.
from inside. Not because there were things wrong, like fully wrong, but there were things that could be improved. And I have skills. Like I work as a program manager. I manage projects. I have experience with frameworks and getting things organized, bringing people together. I have ideas. I have passion. I want to learn. I want to learn because there are people that are now parents of adults with Down syndrome that are being contributed to us. I want to give back.
Yeah.
I wanted to give back to also that people they're focusing now on their children with Down syndrome aging, and they're probably gonna need to have more time now for their families. And they have so much knowledge within because they've been doing this for 40 plus years. And it's time also for new, fresh parents to join and learn from there and give back to them all that they have offered us.
So early on when you first sought advice, it was maybe more Spanish-speaking advice from your brother-in-law,
Yes.
And was it from a family
My
friend
my
in Spain,
childhood friend.
right? And then you've also consumed obviously a lot of resources and knowledge in English. So where do you lean to most? If you're really looking for more information about a particular topic, do you lean more towards the Spanish information, or do you do a combination?
I do a combination, and I think I was mentioning it to someone after a talk that I have at the Parliament House of New South Wales, that it depends on the day. Sometimes I just feel like, for example, to write about my journey that's in Spanish. Other times it just comes in English. And I don't know. I think it depends on how I feel it on that day. I'm not very good at switching languages, although like we are fully Spanish speakers at home. Daniel has been raised as bilingual. He's still like not fully verbal, but he understands Spanish and English. So our main language at home is Spanish. And I do a lot of research in Spanish, but I feel like the connections I have made in Australia, maybe because Daniel was born here, are in English. So I guess the information I've been finding in English. But recently I started looking for information in Spanish because I'm interested in see how the community of people with Down syndrome works in Colombia and how I can also contribute.
Right.
A bit there. I'm in the early stages of that.
And have you come across any other, aside from Ruth, any other families who are Spanish speaking with children with Down syndrome in Sydney or in New South Wales or in Australia?
I have a close family friend, but they are, their daughter has Down syndrome. They also have a son. She is from India, but her husband is from Colombia. They are like kind of the closest I've come. And I know my husband, maybe this is an opportunity to connect with them again. Probably almost 3 years ago, he was at the airport picking up his dad that arrived in Sydney. And he met a family, I think from Mexico, that they have a young kid with Down syndrome. I have a vague memory that the kid may be called Jacob, or I don't know, like I can't remember. He obviously didn't get the details and I wasn't there, but I know there are some families out there from the Spanish speaker countries.
And I guess one of the questions I have is if you're able to talk through one of maybe your greatest challenges going through this experience.
I think the greatest challenge is not around Daniel, it's around the world. Like our societies are not ready for people with disabilities. Like if you don't feel them, if you don't fit them all, like I think it's really hard. Like we spend hours and hours every week in therapies to support our kids to learn to communicate with others, with their peers in school, but then no one else is doing the same thing at home. Like parents are not teaching their kids how to interact with people that don't look like them, that they have different abilities. So that's hard. Like the world's still not designed to fit people with disabilities, and that's probably the biggest challenge. and all the extra paperwork, all the extra documentation that we have to go through. When if you have a typical child, you just go to your local school if that's what you choose, and then you have a spot there. But then for us, is going to that school, making sure they have the right supports, going through all the documentation to apply for supports, like finding out is my child gonna be here? Like in my case, my local school doesn't have a gate. My child has a tendency of escaping. So I can't possibly set him there because I wouldn't be able to go to work in peace knowing that any second that someone is not looking at him is going to escape. Like parents of typical kids don't have to think of all this extra stuff that we have to carry with us all the time. I think that's the challenge.
I love the distinction you say, and you mentioned it earlier between, you said normal, but then you corrected yourself and you said, I don't like that word, and then you changed it to typical. I think that's very powerful. And also referring back to what you said about words are very powerful. What makes that decision for you to not use the word normal?
I just don't feel there is a normal.
Yeah.
We are all so different, disabilities or no disabilities, we are just so different. Like sometimes I feel extremely weird. Like if I look at other people, I won't do the same things that others do. So what is actually normal? I don't know if that's actually something that we can describe.
Yeah.
So I started to avoid using that word because I don't think it comes with any positives. I don't feel like there's nothing that we could call like, oh, this is normal, because what does it make it normal? Like how many people have to do it that way to become normal? I don't think that's something we can measure.
Yeah, very well said. Well, I'm aware that you had the opportunity to speak on a national stage, being Parliament. What was that experience like? And more so, what did that mean to you to have that platform, to be able to talk about what you advocate for?
Like I have delivered the message before, like I have told my story. Like initially, my friend, the one that I mentioned at the start, from Spain, like she has a blog. And when Daniel was born, after a few weeks, like she invited me to write an article for her blog. That one is in Spanish. I can try to research that again because I saw it like 3 years ago and share it with you. And so I tell my story there about receiving Daniel's possible diagnostic during pregnancy and all that. So I kind of reach to people that way. Then where I work, I have the opportunity to share my story. When I joined it back last year for World Down Syndrome Day, I was able to present to my home office about my story, and the whole presentation was focused on the power of words, how like something that you say will have different effects depending on the words you choose to use. But then like being invited by Down Syndrome Isabel to speak in the Parliament was a completely different story. I was like, okay, now I'm gonna reach more people. I'm gonna talk to an audience that is beyond my work environment, my friends that will read my blog. And it was powerful. At the beginning, I got nervous because I feel that I just couldn't prepare for something so personal. Like I can't kind of memorize a presentation like I do sometimes for work, because this is my life. Like I just wanted to be there, share my message like as it comes to me, and then I just felt that reward of having people coming to me, thanking me for sharing my story, like mentioning how touchy it was, how they wanted to go and speak more, how they felt empowered to also go and advocate. Like, yes, I've never been this vocal for my kids, for my adult children. And now I feel that I want to go and do something about it. I want to kind of deliver that message of like, be careful how you speak, because it can have the impact that you won't imagine it have, depending on the words you choose. So I invite everyone to also every time you're delivering a message, think first what words are you going to use. Because if you see like, hey, I have bad news, your son have high risk of Down syndrome, and then if you say like, hello, I have the results from your test, and I can see there are high probability of Down syndrome. It's completely different.
So if you were to give a message to those, if there's a family out there who are maybe Spanish speaking at home, or they're bilingual, they have a child with Down syndrome, what message would you give them, number one? And number two, how can they connect with you or with Down Syndrome New South Wales?
If there are any families with children or even adults with Down syndrome, please get in touch. Find us in Down Syndrome New South Wales. There are a lot of events, conference, like fun stuff, but also informative stuff. But we also have plenty of support in terms of schooling, education, going to find the right supports from your child. Like we have leads with recommended health providers. Get in touch with us. Like my Instagram is public, Isabel Ramirez. You can follow me. You can send me a message. I'm pretty sure Ruth has an Instagram, like with her daughter's name Coco, that is also public, and we can share email address and the website for Down Syndrome New South Wales. I guess we all know that this journey is beautiful, it's rewarding, but it comes with challenges as well, and you don't have to do it alone. Like there is a lot of support that you can find through Down Syndrome New South Wales. And if we don't provide for some reason, and I don't think that will be the case, we can connect you with other providers as well. I know it's good to have your friends that you have from before Down syndrome journeys, but having these connections with families that actually understand when you say like, I love my child, but this is hard and I wish I don't have to be strong, like those families are gonna understand what you mean. They're not gonna think that you are tired of being a parent or you are just complaining about your kid. They will just get you, like, and they will have your back. Yes, I have made so many new friends that I know that they'll be for life. Plus, I also know that Daniel is making friends that are gonna last for life. And then it comes also to siblings. Like siblings are sometimes in the shadow of all this attention that Down syndrome kids get, like from our families. And when you connect with other families, they're gonna have friends that are living the same experience of being the sibling of someone with a disability, and they will learn that, and they can connect, and they can relate to what they live in, any experiences. And I just really recommend to be connected with us. Don't do this alone, because it's so much fun when we do it as a community.
And I think with that, I'd like to wrap up this conversation and say thank you so much, Isabel, for opening up about your story, for being an advocate for not only for children with Down syndrome in Australia, but also for parents, for siblings like your son, Benjamin, for Ruth. And thank you so much, Ruth, for giving us this space to also talk about this important topic. So now you have two great advocates in the Latin Australian community. Isabel and Ruth, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.